Good afternoon, Abbotsford residents. I'm Mr. Pelican. I'm running for the mayor of Abbotsford to bring the RCMP into Abbotsford on the insider trading. So you saw David Eby, the NDP, say that everything's a conspiracy when it starts to point to him. When Darren Braun, the economic development officer, the mayor's own son that was working in the city, leaked the information on how Henry was winning the decisions with council up at his house on Downs, how he could control Ed Fast, the MP of the Federal Conservatives, and Mike de Jong and Pam from saying anything. How Henry owned Vicky Hopes in Canada newspaper with Rick Rakes, I showed you, and what he did to Dave Sidhu. Abbotsford residents and myself went to an attachment in the next neighboring municipality, the RCMP. Darren Brown showed how Henry picked Mark Warkentine to the police board so the police board wouldn't call out Mike Sears covering the hit and run, task force on Mogale and everything. There was an establishment. This was a establishment. Stakeholders, what needed to own Abbotsford for job lists. When I learned from Darren Brown in the beginning that why they were rigging the decisions were millions of dollars on zonings. And millions of dollars coming in for the province and the feds that would go to them and not going to tendering. And Darren Brown leaked that information to me, and I knew working with Wall Financial, Peter Wall, Aquilini, Mike Dakota, Stuart Olson, Ani, Cressy, and developed. He's lifting and he's enriching himself, and he took advantage of Abbotsford taxpayers. But Darren Brown showed me what the city manager was doing. He showed me what the city engineer, Rob Isaac, was doing, and he walked me through of all the stuff that I knew by tickets what they're not supposed to do. Kelly Green is an NDP, and she's climate ready for David Eby. And she has an accountability on the $76 million that went missing out of Barrowtown, and David Eby ain't pushing on her to ask where that money is. And in my opinion, David Eby probably said, I'm going to funnel this money out of BC taxpayers, send it into you, and I need it back. And he needs to come out and he needs to call that out. I showed you a few pictures yesterday on my podcast of the Liberals gathering with my BC Conservative Korky Neufeld. Amrik Narang, I want to talk up to you, is a lawyer, and he supposed to represent the court, an officer of the court. He unfairly cheated in the ledge, taking advantage and exposure over all the other candidates that got to run for council. Korky Neufeld is the elected M.L.A, and he went over in these ridings that he's the big dog. He's been hanging with Abbotsford city councils. Mark Warkentine, elected city, and usually Mark, when there's an election, he's a city council and a lawyer. Usually there's an election, Mark Warkentine goes to England. And if he would have went to England, he might have stayed out of this picture. And he went to Amrik Narang's party, which is a conflict of interest over all the other councils. An unfair advantage to councils that got to run. Jerry Palmer, another lawyer. Jerry Palmer was the board of King Haven with Milt Walker when they put alcohol in the back of the toilet tanks to keep the edge off of people and hide it behind the law's back and everybody's back so they could get the grant. When I posted that, Jerry Palmer got mad of me putting his name. I said, Jerry, them people went there for help. They've been sentenced there for help, and you took advantage of them, and you're lying to the court for money. And nobody should be hiding alcohol. Oh, there was a cleanup. But it was for the grant. And Henry was instrumental of making sure that was happening and that wouldn't get raided. Then Simon Gibson, who is a former Liberal with Mike de Jong, and he got unseated out of Mission, and he's a city council, and he's a Liberal. Wherever Mike phones him, he goes. Last time he asked Pierre Poilievre to apologize to Mike de Jong and the Conservatives for not allowing him in the Conservative Party, a Liberal, and he was there, an elected city council. And remember, Dave Sidhu and Marcus Dalvis told me, his people, that I called him out for the BC United coat and cheating, and now Simon and them doing it. All these Liberals gathered. Micah de Jong, the Liberal, the head guy that runs everything, and every time there's a setup, Mike's there. And he was there. And all these people were there. And it's an unfair advantage to council that got to run. to Amrik Narang doing? And Amrik Narang unveiling his sign. And they had this good thing. And they went there to huddle. And they believed, they convinced themselves, we're lawyers, we're smarter than everybody, we're going to trick Abbotsford, we're going to do this. Korky Neufeld had no business going behind the BC Conservative voters or the BC Conservative Party and being with Liberals, period. You didn't see Bruce Bamman there, period. You won't see him there because it's the Liberals. And Bruce knew that that's wrong. But these guys got that establishment to fool Abbotsford. You think they're really a Conservative, but they're working together. And they need to save and elect Amrik Narang. So let me explain. Dave Sadu was a city councillor. He owned the Capriccia newspaper with his dad. He got in a lot of trouble. He brought a lot of heat. And they needed to unload Dave Sadu, and they need a new guy, a new face for the South Asians to market. And convince the South Asians, because they're done with Dave Sadu, and you could see it, Dave wasn't even invited there. And even if Dave says, well, I was out of town, they should cancel Dave. You're a big icon. They needed you. And they moved it just like they did with Patricia Dreesen when they wanted Dreesen in over Sandy Blue. These guys are really smart old geezers. I think they got dementia. And so what they did is, let me explain why Mark Warkentine was there. They told Mark in layman's terms, Mark, if you don't go there, Amrik Narang's the only way through for the South Asian votes to get you re-elected. And we're marketing Amrik Narang to pick up the South Asian votes and the money. And same with Simon Gibson. And Mark Warkentine, oh my gosh, I think his wife and his family will be really happy. All the politicians said, what? He looked like, they said he looked like an owl just frozen in time. Just frozen in time, because he knew it was illegal. And Amrik Narang, they said, look at him. He don't look like he's being really happy. But Korky Neufeld done wrong to BC Conservatives, and he's hurt BC Conservatives. I want to make a claim today that I'm going to call the BC Conservative Caroline Finlay out. Unless she gets a hold of this and distance the BC Conservatives from the Liberals and anybody that's tied to this and starts running roughshod, she ain't going to form government over the NDP. They're already self-annihilating because Abbotsford residents, and I'll make this claim and David Eby will hear it, are going to work hard to get rid of Korky Neufeld. And if Caroline Finlay's counting on Korky Neufeld to have that seat, she's going to lose that seat. And David Eby will hear that Mr. Pelican caught that establishment, they jinxed that residents, they threatened, they covered an attempted murder, they insider traded. I can get a seat there because Mr. Pelican and Abbotsford residents will help either one BC or the NDP to get rid of Korky Neufeld. And he'll know that. So I'm on Tracy Road. and I want to explain to you. About this. This was the reward to shut Dave Sadu's mouth, and Dave and the South Asians weren't at the party. And none of them were invited as they read the stakeholders that got so much development. This is what led to all the threats on my life. This is what led to the Abbotsford chief threatening me. This is what led to the Abbotsford task force on me. This is what led to him pulling me over, raiding my vehicle. This is what led to him up at Ledgeview telling me they're undercover cops to pull over. Because Henry knew that I knew the development from Wall Financial, Peter Wall, Aquilini, Mike Dakota, Stuart Olson, Ani Cressy developments, the World Olympics, and all of these. From Devon Oil, Syncrude, and everywhere. That you can't cheat on the development side. Henry was using council to rule over the general public, and this is why the council all were there. They were collaborating as a team, and I wanted the general public to see this. They can't say no, and they were there. This is why they never called Henry out for the hit and run. This is why they never called out Barrowtown's money. This is why they never called out the Mackenzie Bog. And this is why none of the council did it. They were working together as a group, as an organization. And the Liberals and the NDP that were elected in town were doing the same. When Darren Brown, the Economic Development Officer, Henry's son, told this information, I took it to the Mission RCMP. They started the wheel going, and today you could see why the BC former Liberals are trying to hold on to Abbotsford, the stakeholders. It's insider trading. It was fraud on residents. It embezzled money to enrich themselves and their family. And this is what they were doing. So rather than Korky Neufeld stand right here, he couldn't call anything out, and this is why he can't stand up for Abbotsford as an MLA because he's with the council, and say, Mr. Speaker, this is insider trading. The NDP, Pamela Alexis, set this up in a long time in advance. Vanderpoels and Vitalis purchased this. They got a corporate welfare handout from BC taxpayers. They were rushing and giving the property. Dave Sidhu is the city council. His dad is Andy Sidhu. They needed to pay him back. They rushed his new house on Huntington and McCallum, and they needed to pay him off quickly, and they needed to make sure he gets his shut-up money. They increased the carbon footprint on 5 acres from 20,000 to 60,000. And they pushed raspberries under, and they wanted to develop this, and they're rushing it through. And it's insider trading. It's all insider trading. But Korky didn't do that. Korky feels big and emboldened that the councils are with him, and now I got say across Abbotsford. And I'll tell Caroline Finley, if you need, I got say. Councils and them, they'll get this guy, that guy out. They could control the media. You could see what they did. And Korky Neufeld didn't stand here for Abbotsford residents, for the farmers, the insider trading, or help the BC Conservatives. He didn't help them. He went to some garbage party that was unfair advantage to all councils and everybody that's got to run for the general public. Because we need Amrik Narang in, and Amrik Narang now will agree with all the rest of the city councils to pass the decision. This is what Abbotsford first did when they were in Henry's house. And Amrik Narang is supposed to be an officer of the court. And they got this facade. We're a lawyer. Are you scared? We're the Abbotsford police investigators. Are you scared? Nobody's scared. Nobody's scared. Nobody's scared. They're using Amrik Narang to get to the South Asians and call that. So I'm asking Suki Dami to run for council. Call Amrik Narang out. And we have to go after him heavy. They needed to load him. I'm asking Barty Sandhu for your South Asians. And I'm asking Eric Nivel, all these people to stand up now and now fight for your community. And it's not a conspiracy. You could see it. And thanks to Amrik Narang's party, you could see what they were doing, and this is what they were doing. We have to go and bring the RCMP into Abbotsford. And we're going to bring them in very heavy, and we're going to go after them very quick and make very short work of them. And the question I have now is, how far is David Eby involved? With Kelly Green not asking for a full accountability on the 76 million in Barrowtown, and where it went out on gravel in and gravel out, and a few weeks later David Eby shows up. In my opinion, did he come for his envelope? You got to get that money back and the expenditure of it back to the province, the BC taxpayers. This garbage here, the 500 million, they need Amrik Narang by UFV. They need the Ron Funksters Meisters up on the Vaquero Ranch, and this is what they were doing. And how do we stop it? We don't stop it necessarily by me coming your mayor. We stop it by bringing the RCMP in. And that's how you stop it. And you put a stop to it right away. But they need a front runner to make sure Abbotsford has a voice. It shows all the corruption. It shows who was all involved. It shows Rob Isaac, city manager. And it showed what Amrik Narang and this establishment was doing. And they needed somebody. And then they needed somebody that would be truthful to the general public, be forefront to the public, and say, this is the shit that's going on behind your back. And I don't believe in sitting down with Henry Brown. I don't believe in cutting a deal like Mike DeYoung said. You cut a deal. Henry owns Abbotsford. I don't believe in that garbage Ed Fast did. I believe to be accountable to Abbotsford residents, the embezzlement, all the money, all the fraud. And I believe in lowering your taxes. And I believe there's no pass for Dave Sidhu. And I believe there's no pass for Korky Neufeld. So I'm going to make this pledge today, right here on Tracy Road, to Caroline Finley. You're going to lose a couple of seats, and you need to have a seat to run in the BC Conservatives. And the best would be now for you to tell Korky Neufeld to screw up, to give up his seat to you. If you don't, I am going to work hard with Abbotsford residents to run a 1BC or an NDP, and you're going to lose them seats on your MLAs. And that there you're going to be looking for. And I pledge that to you, Caroline Finley. I pledge it to the BC Conservatives, and I'll make it clear. What Korky Neufeld has done cannot be undone by apology no more. And he just keeps going in more and more and more. Korky Neufeld should be here, and Korky Neufeld should say, in order for Dave Sidhu's silence and not to turn evidence against what the Abbotsford Council and all of them were doing on job sites, they distanced themselves from him. They don't need him. They're running Amrik Narang to pick and fool the South Asians for votes and money. And this is how Mark Warkentine and them will get it. And we're going to let Dave Sidhu and Andy Sidhu drift in the wind. We're not. We're going to go after Dave Sidhu, Andy Sidhu, and Vitalis, and we're going to go after everybody that was involved in it, because this is how the threats begin. This is how Henry got in that car. Henry got in that car not because I was challenging Henry. He got in that car because of that blue and green sign the development said he was cheating on. And he figured to end my life. And Mike Sir, the police chief, and his top investigators knew that that sign is what was causing all the threats in Abbotsford, the conflict of interest, the insider trading, the rigging of job sites, city councils on job sites with candidates and everything. And the Abbotsford police were a bloody joke, and they couldn't hold up nothing. And now they don't know which way to go, and they're falling everywhere. They got to have their ass kicked out of here, because how many people are laying in the graveyards that they did it? These unruthless, scrupable men like Mike DeYoung and Ed and all these, and you see Amrik and all the fair unfair, went to any lengths to make sure that they could get that money. And Carney said it the best. Follow the money, you find the organized crime. And I'm going to ask Korky Neufeld to this. Korky, Abbotsfords and myself would like you to resign as the M.L.A. for the BC Conservatives. And that needs to be addressed. And I think I would be here today as a Conservative and make that statement to Caroline Finlay. If you do not tell Korky Neufeld to step down, you need his seat. Let him run as an NDP, independent. Get him out. I'm going to work hard with the Abbotsford residents, and you know I'm quite capable of doing that. You saw I handed Ed his ass. You saw I unseated Mike DeYoung to get Suk Mangillian. You saw what I done to Pamela Alexis. And you know that I'm a heavy hitter. I'm tied to the church. I'm very well liked in Abbotsford. I'm very well liked in all communities. You know I'm very well tied, and I'll pledge this to Abbotsford residents. This is insider trading, and this is where Korky Neufeld needed to be. And this is what he did. And I don't know how Amrik Narang would put up advertising that he's a lawyer of 25 years, and knowing the rule of being an officer of the court and taking an unfair advantage and a conflict of interest with Mark Warkentine and everybody there. I'm live. Tracy Road, Abbotsford, British Columbia.